When life seems unfair, when it does not make sense to you, what do? You check your perspective. Many times our perspective is not the right one. We're looking from the wrong angle. For example, when I pondered to understand this, it was troublesome in my sight. Until I came into the sanctuary of God, then I perceived their end. What is the meaning? The writer is saying, when I was thinking, I was so bothered. I could not understand. It was troublesome in my sight. Then something happened. He entered the sanctuary of God, another word for worship, another word for focusing on God. When he entered to worship God, what happened? His perspective was changed. The Bible tells us, then I perceived their end. You see, your perspective can be very narrow. It can be very temporal. But God will help us just like Asaph. God helped him to see the big picture. Not just what's happening today, but what's going to happen in the future. And only God can help us. That's why you need to align. What does it mean to enter the sanctuary of God? When you enter to worship God, guess what happened? In any place of worship, the scriptures are read. You begin to study God's revelation, His Word. That's important. Perspective comes when we study the Word of God. Perspective comes when you begin to pray. When you spend time with God, you begin to adjust your perspective, even perspective about yourself. He saw himself. He said, I was acting like an animal. I was acting in ignorance. When you focus on people, circumstances, it's going to affect your perspective. When you focus on yourself, it's going to affect your perspective. But when you focus on God, just like the Psalms, then you begin to realize your perspective is changed. It's God and you. When life seems unfair, what do? Check our perspective. Align our perspective with God's perspective and develop eternal perspective. Why is this so important? Developing eternal perspective. Because our concept of right and wrong, good or bad, what is fair, what is not fair, our concept of what is important, what is not important, has to be aligned with God, with the truth. Because God will help us think properly. Perspective can only change by the grace of God.